Hello everybody, welcome back to my television review series. Today we'll be discussing Gangland Undercover Season 1. Just got finished watching it. I'm currently uploading my first YouTube from this morning that I recorded. This will be out after that. Because like I said, my Hulu membership is coming to an end. I don't think I'm going to renew it just because there's not a bunch of things I like to, not a bunch of stuff jumping out at me. I did like this one. I'll give you my overall impressions, grade, plot, synopsis, and character development, and maybe some major themes. But like I said, probably be going back to, I know you tried Paramount Plus and do the other season of Yellowstone, and I think there was like a predecessor, like a prequel, or just like a show that came out after Yellowstone that like talks about like the Dutton family before. So I might go over to Paramount Plus for a month or something. But this one, Gangland Undercover, we have the overview. The drama series is a fictionalized retelling of the story of a meth dealer turned ATF informant Charles Falco, who spent 3 years inside one of America's most dangerous motorcycle gangs, the Vagos. And they keep saying Vagos, not Vagos, but it looks like Vagos to me, not Vagos. Although Falco originally took on the assignment to avoid spending 20 years in prison on drug charges, it eventually evolved into a quest for justice for him. Gangland Undercover documents the lives of outlawed bikers who live in a world in which respect is earned through fear. The series is based on Falco's memoir, Vagos, Mongols, and Outlaws, and documented historical research of gang rivalries. So it was originally aired on History Channel. I watched it on Hulu. 85% of Google users liked it, 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will give it a B+. Like I said, I obviously watch a lot of crime dramas. Anything with a historical backing, it buoys up the grade pretty well, because even if the first of all, the writings can get dull on a completely fictionalized one, but something with some historical backing, and even without like good violence or good super great plot development, it's just is interesting as a history lesson. So I like the storytelling, and it's not narrated. They have like some cutaway scenes. The Charles Falco is played by Damon Runyon, so I think he does a good job throughout the series. But I like the historical backing of it. Again, biker gangs are an interesting criminal element to me for entertainment value. I thought the production was done pretty well. So that's the reason for the B+ on this one. Certainly entertaining. This one's only like most all the other crime shows are TV mature. I think this one's only TV 14. So again, there's not much violence. There's some violent scenes, but it's not like gory like a completely fictionalized story would be. So certainly a good crime drama. I really like the history backing. B+ overall. So if you've not seen the show and would like to watch the show, we will be doing plot synopsis and character development. So you're going to want to shut off this video here because there will be spoiler alerts. And so you start off the season and you learn that Charles Falco, again, was a meth dealer. He had his partner, Bernard. To have him up here, I had it right up here. But Bernard, you don't learn much about him till later. But basically, Charles was making about $100,000 a year. He would cook some meth for about a couple weeks out of the year, make $100K, and just party the rest of the year. And his buddy comes along. Bernard is more of a businessman, a big dealer, and Charles starts cooking, basically full time, and he starts making $100,000 a month. So he's pulling in about $1.2 million a year, selling, I think it's methamphetamines, with his partner Bernard. So the series opens up. He's at that level. He has a previous girlfriend, or he has a girlfriend. They do say her name later, I forget it, but we'll get to that. Then the family, the girl leaves him, and he gets raided by the police. So right off the bat, he's arrested, basically facing the 20 years in prison if he doesn't integrate or infiltrate the Vagos biker gang, and that you just collect evidence and help pull down a bigger fish. And so the way he does that, he agrees to do so. He gets his ATF handler, Cause, who he works with throughout. He doesn't get paid any money, so he has to go basically just hang around and try to get initiated into the biker gang. Oh, and so the structure of this season was 6 episodes, about 45 minutes apiece. There was a second season with about, I think, 8 episodes, also about 45 minutes apiece. So he moves this is in California, and takes place between 2003 and 2006. And the operation is a joint operation between the ATF, local law enforcement, DEA, DOJ, all the other three-letter names, acronyms, buildings, people, organizations, and it's called like Green 22 is the project's name, I believe. But if you're Googling the history of it, you'll find certainly just the TV show. So he goes to California, and he basically just goes up to this bar where all the Vagos are, like their clubhouse, and you meet Kid. Kid has a girlfriend who's rather young. Kid is, I don't know, 60. The girlfriend's, I don't know, 25, 30. And so Charles goes in there and basically tells Kid, clearly a biker bar, so people approach him like, what are you doing here? And he's like, he basically makes up this story about being in Lompoc, a penitentiary in California, and being in like a tense situation where he could have gotten stabbed to death, and a Vago protects him and saves his life. And so you meet the crew pretty immediately. Kid is the vice president of the motorcycle gang. We have Lizard, who's in the motorcycle gangs like an old timer. You have Schizo, who is the president of the charter. You have Felix, who is the international president of the whole organization. You have Stash, who is, when the show opens up, you do see an initial kill scene from him. Again, TV-14, not like a violent scene. But Stash is a prospect when the show opens up. And Darko, who is the sergeant in arms. And they have some other ones, but again, those are the major players. And yeah, so basically, Charles tells Kid, and I think Darko, but just the crew, this story about the Vago in the jail, and it's gotta be Vagos. If it's a Spanish, it's gotta be Vagos. We'll say Vago. And so he gets he tells them this story. They're not really buying it too much, but it's like whatever. So after that, he becomes a hang-around. So again, the plot does move along well for 6 episodes, 45 minutes. Again, obviously based on a historical account. But then you also meet Susanna, who ends up becoming Charles's girlfriend throughout the time. And she's kind of like making out with Schizo's girl. And we're in the biker gang land, so old ladies. But Susanna is another kind of like this woman hanging around that ends up dating Charles throughout. And so they basically do that. The first type of thing, they like criminal thing. I forget when he goes. They do the national thing where they ride out once a year, and so we still ride along there. He comes back, and I think it's after, I don't know the exact time frame, but I think about 6 months, 3 to 6 months, he becomes a prospect. And so he gets his prospect cut, so he has to start, being on call all the time. He's working, the ATF is not giving him any money, so he's working, selling car parts. So what's like the first criminal thing they do, or document at least? I don't remember very well. But, they go, so there was a guy named Dog. He was part of the Aryan Brotherhood. He's not in the motorcycle gang, but basically, Charles, Darko, and Stash go to Dog, this Aryan Brotherhood member, to sell him crystal meth or something. So they go to sell him crystal meth. They're inside. Charles and Stash are in there. Stash, lips off at Dog. Dog puts a gun to Stash. Charles kind of covers for him. Dog pistol whips him, puts a gash in Stash's eyebrow. And so they get the deal done. Cops do pull up to that one, but again, biker guys sitting there with their cuts on, and they're like, "Oh, we are definitely not selling meth. We just broke down." So the cops help them push them along, and they get away without any real run-ins with the cops. So once they get back, Charles covers for Stash. Basically, Stash again did something he shouldn't have done, but Charles lies to Schizo and Kid to cover for Stash. Schizo knows, but he respects that he's got his brother's back. And so that's kind of the first thing. Again, it's a dramatization of real life events, so I'm not sure if that's a real occurrence, but that's what happens in the show. Next type of thing that happens is, I don't know. I do know. The next type of big development for the criminality, or just moving along the plot, again, throughout the time, Charles is, he at the beginning, he doesn't have a bike, he's got a car, so he gets a motorcycle from Kaz, his ATF handler. He takes it into Lizard, who's like the in-house mechanic, or like the best guy with motorcycles. They all have bikes. But they do that. Again, maybe a couple fight scenes in the bars. Again, more of a historical show as opposed to like a real like crime drama that we've reviewed before. But so he gets a bike from the ATF, and Kaz has the VIN number registered to him, but there's like a secret VIN number that ends up playing a role later on in the show. And so Charles takes it to Lizard and gets it fitted to be like a functioning bike to be in the motorcycle gang. And so Charles, Kid, and Lizard have just like a free ride. They just go and having fun on their bikes, a little bonding, smoke a little bit of weed. And the next big thing is on their national ride or something. And Charles is either a prospect, and he's not a patch member yet, but he's definitely, I think he's got a prospect cut on. But they go to, basically, at a motorcycle club, they're supposed to do all of their business, as a club. But Kid needs some money, so he's going to sell some meth himself. So Charles and Kid have a good relationship. Charles and Stash and Darko really don't. So Kid kind of has Charles's back throughout the thing. And when the show does open up, the person that Stash kills is a snitch. So the ATF had, and I think it's historically accurate, but they had a snitch in there before who ends up getting killed. And so that's where he came to take play. And so they're doing their national ride along. They're going to do this drug deal. And it's somebody Kid has dealt with before. And he's like, he shows him this liquid meth. And they go out back. It's like, yeah, do you have cash? They're like, yep, we got a bunch of this stuff in the trunk. Go out back. There's a bunch of dudes, and they rob him. And so Kid gets on his bike. They just beat him up and steal his stuff. And so Kid and Charles chase after them. Kid wrecks his bicycle, flies off the mountain, and dies. So Kid dies probably about halfway through the season. So Charles's main compatriot or friend in the motorcycle club does not have his back anymore. Oh, he's dead. So yeah. At like that national ride along, Charles is fully dating Susanna, after like the first episode or two. But Schizo, again, he decides he wants to boink Susanna, so he boinks Susanna at the national thing. Charles would find out till later. But they come back. And again, Felix is the international president at the national meetup. He's like telling Schizo, who's the chapter president, you definitely have a snitch in your ranks, you need to take care of that. And so they're still not sure who it is. And so, blah, blah, blah. Next big kind of development is Stash and Darko. Darko's a sergeant-in-arms, and, Stash is killed for the group, and Darko, and they're trying to put Charles on, more aggressive things. And so they go to do an armed robbery. And so they go to rob this dude. I think of just like money and drugs, but they go to rob some guy. The robbery kind of goes south. Another dude comes to the house while they're robbing him. They take him under control while they're doing that. The guy that's trying to open the safe runs out the door with his girlfriend, trying to escape. And Darko yells, stop him, stop him. Stash pulls out the 45, or maybe 44, and shoots them in the back. So he gets the 2-for-1. He's a machine with the thing, or something. That's what he says in the show. But he kills them. And so now you have Stash and Darko complicit on a murder. The whole time, Charles has got a recorder trying to collect evidence for cause. And so Charles gets Stash and Darko both kind of laying low. Charles gets Stash to admit it to him after some partying and some late nights. And he also gets Darko to admit it as well. And so that's another major development. I'm getting towards the end of the season. You don't really hear from Dog anymore. They go to jail. So they get into a big brawl one day at the clubhouse. Schizo beats up some kid pretty severely. And so they all get in jail. So they're all in jail for a while. While in jail, they join like these gangs because they have to. And so most of the Vagos are split up. So you have a couple episodes where Charles is like, he becomes the rep, just another hierarchy of gang members in prison. And so they're in prison for a little bit. I don't know, an episode and a half, and then Kaz helps get them all out because it's part of a federal investigation, and they have to tiptoe around how they do that so Charles doesn't get made and get killed by the Vagos himself. So they go to prison, they have some runarounds, and that happens for about an episode and a half, and then they get released when Kaz pulls the federal strings. And so they get back out, and Felix is still putting pressure on Schizo saying there's still a rat. Probably about halfway through, or 3/4 way through the episode, Susanna, Charles's girlfriend, follows him and sees him meeting up with Kaz and a member of the DEA. So Susanna picks up on that he's, an informant probably about halfway through the season. So Charles has got to tiptoe how he deals with the club as well as his girlfriend. Hopefully she doesn't blab to Schizo, his wife. Susanna's good friends with Schizo's wife, and remember Schizo's boinked Susanna at the club meetup that Charles is not aware of. So Schizo rubs that in Charles' face later on, and Charles punches him for that. But after they get out of prison, Felix greenlights Darko to have his own chapter of the Vagos. So Darko goes with Stash, they take about half the club. Charles stays, obviously, to gather evidence on Schizo, and as the overview said, he becomes personal for him. So at this point, we've got enough evidence, he's trying to get as long sentences as he can, trying to put as many prisoners in jail, righting his wrongs of being a meth dealer. So you have Charles throughout the show is called Quick, but you have Quick, Lizard, Schizo, pretty much the ones that stay, and Schizo just starts patching in a bunch of people because he's got to get his numbers up. And so I believe Schizo's wife is Sarah Jane, but we'll get to that. But then, so they're still looking for a snitch. Stash sees Quick, Charles get pulled over, and then Kaz save him, but Kaz has also, Darko has also come over to Charles's house when Kaz was there, so Darko thinks Kaz is a drug dealer, and so enough evidence at this point, it's the end of the season, and Kaz is like, you've been invited to Felix's place, so another chance to get more big fish, and so it's like, Charles is like, Kaz, we have enough stuff, you don't have to if you don't want to, he agrees to anyway, and so he goes to the place. At that same time, Sarah and Susanna are having a drink at a bar, and Susanna had followed Quick Charles to see him meeting up with Kaz that one time, and also had found the tape recorder. And so Susanna tells Sarah Jane that. Before that happens, Charles had gone into Schizo's office, and Sarah had let him in because they were friendly at the time, and he had managed to steal the ledger from Schizo, just with more dealings about drugs and more criminal activity. And so that happens at the same time that Charles, and he's supposed to open the gates at 3 a.m. for the raids. While he's at Phoenix's house from like 10 p.m. to 3 in the morning, Susanna and Sarah are drinking at the bar. Susanna tells Sarah what Charles really is. Sarah tells Schizo. Schizo's not at Felix. Felix is currently, at the same time, Schizo's calling Felix to tell him that Charles is a snitch. Felix is interrogating Charles all the time. He got pulled over, and Stash saw him, and Kaz let him off the hook. And so they go back and forth. They smoke a little bit of meth. Because Charles is supposed to cook meth for Darko's new chapter, and he wasn't really asking. Or he told Felix that Charles had already agreed before Stash and Darko brought it to Charles. And so Schizo's blowing up Felix, and right as that happens, it hits 3 o'clock, and the ATF storms in and arrests them all. So Stash is arrested, Darko's arrested, Felix is arrested, Schizo's arrested, Lizard's arrested, and the other plot development was when Lizard initially worked on the bike and found this, secret VIN number, just like identification number, serial number for the bike. He knew that Charles was a confidential informant from the beginning. And you get some resolution that Lizard was just like, the only real friend he had was Kid, and once he died, it was like, well, maybe it's the time to purge all these people out of here, so just didn't say anything. And so that happens. There's one other scene where there's another Vago, like Charles is going to see if he qualifies for witness protection, and he sees another Vago in there, and so it's like they got a couple informants. In prison, there's another minor development of Bernard trying to kill Charles, because Charles is, again, being able to snitch on the Vagos because he already turned over his partner Bernard. So Bernard's still alive trying to kill Charles. That has a little development when they're in prison, also when they're out. But the big raid happens, and that's kind of that. And there is also another minor raid previous in the season where they're looking for guns and they find nothing. And again, they're always thinking, who's the snitch, who's the snitch? So that's really the major developments at the end of the season. There's certainly season 2, so I'm not sure what the development will be there. But if it's still with the Vagos or with a different biker gang or just the consequences of that. But I'll probably watch that. Not sure if I'll get through it with my I think my membership renews on December 5th, and I don't think I'm going to renew Hulu just for. And I'll do. There's another final season of Snowfall's coming out in February 22nd, I believe. So once that plays, like the whole season plays, I'll be back on Hulu for that. Certainly, there's just not a bunch of shows jumping out. And certainly would watch, with the history backing, would certainly watch season 2 of this one. Maybe like there's an Aryan Brotherhood. But it's just a good switch up as opposed to just completely fictional writing for crime drama. So B+, thoroughly entertained it, enjoyed it, definitely recommend it, and that's what I thought of it. So thank you for watching my review of Gangland Undercover Season 1. See you on the next one.